Okay, we have Tammy on line too. How you doing?
Hi. Hey, I was just flipping through the channels, and so let me get this straight. You guys are atheists.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And, well, what do you believe? How do you believe that you're here, or how you're formed, is what I'm...
Well, there's certainly a lot to believe in, a lot beyond God.
Yeah.
Science has uncovered a lot in biology and geology to find out the origins of not just us, but our world, evolution of our solar system.
So you do believe in science? You're more science. You believe you're on the science side of...
I am convinced of the best competitive theories out there. I wouldn't use the word believe, and if I use the word belief, I'm using it in a weak sense. I mean, I think to make decisions in life, sometimes we do have to make a judgment on what's happened in the past and how we got here, and so I try to take the most realistic theory based on the evidence that we have today.
But do you believe in good and evil? Do you believe that there's... Have you ever walked into a house and gone, oh, man, there's something really strange in this air, in
like
this
a smell
house that I'm in? And
yeah, but that's usually a product of the air conditioning or something.
That's pretty good, but you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you sense evil or you sense good. And, I've bounced back and forth between believing in God and being an atheist. I remember saying, okay, this is me, this is my flesh, this dies, what else is there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, what happens? I'm going to die, my flesh goes.
Well,
but yet, is there a soul? Am I going to float away, and is something going to happen?
And religion definitely does have a strong hold on that. I mean, nobody likes the fact that they're going to die, that I've only got so many so many years left of my life, and then it's going to be over. I mean, I don't like that any more than anybody else does. But again, going with, a naturalistic view of the universe, knowing that there are scientific reasons for things, that we can, observe effects, and we see other animals die and they don't continue on, why should we? Again, we see
then how do you explain the when somebody dies and they bring them back to life? How do you explain that?
When does that happen?
Or
you mean like someone's resuscitated?
Death experiences. And
okay. Those I've actually seen some pretty decent explanations on, given how the brain reacts when it's deprived of oxygen, as in which parts of it start shutting down first. And essentially when the optic area, is deprived of oxygen, you just start, it just turns into a big white light, essentially, is, the equivalent of what you see.
So you think that it's pretty much hallucinations when they're...
Yeah, I mean, again,
actually when the body is dying.
Yeah, and a lot of it is cultural. I mean,
people say, oh, I saw my grandma. Now, I've never had anything like that happen to me, but I can tell you on the opposite end, where when I was, I'm 37 right now. I was 18 years old, and I took I don't know how many pills. I took some sleeping pills, and I wanted to die, and I did, and it worked, and I was clinically dead, but I didn't have that light, and my grandma and grandpa, whatever. What happened to me was I felt like I was falling into a deep black hole, and then I had this big hand come and grab me and throw me on the floor, and I was like thrown off the bed, because I thought, oh, I'm just going to go to sleep and never wake up again. Yeah. And it wasn't that way. I woke up, but there was it was just a hand that threw me down. So, I mean, how do you explain these things?
And I have heard of a lot of that. Again, that sounds vaguely similar. I actually did some reading up on out-of-body experiences several years back, and a lot of those are very, very similar to near-death experiences. And essentially, again, there is absolutely no evidence that we see that you have some kind of soul or consciousness that is separate from your body and can leave it.
Or that there's a big hand separate from your body that grabbed you.
Exactly.
It was felt that way.
Well, sure, because it was your brain was harmed. It was your mind that was deprived of oxygen, and I would expect that to be very similar to taking, heavy drugs or something hallucinogenic.
Yeah, you can get something happening there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
it's just interesting how some people see the light and see all these people. Not me.
You got something different.
Yeah, I had the negative, the opposite.
Yeah.
And so, do you believe that there is a good and an evil? Not necessarily Satan and God, but do you believe that in this universe?
Well, there is. I don't believe that there is, an objective, this is good all the time, everywhere, under every circumstance, and this is always bad under every circumstance, every time. Again, everything is relative. What is the situation that you're in that makes this good or bad? And like I say, I mean, that can be applied to everything. And so again, is there an objective good and bad? No. Is there a relative good and bad? Absolutely.
Actually, I look at it slightly different. By objective, what I'm thinking of is I'm thinking, like they say, great minds tend to think alike. I think rational minds tend to think alike. I think that people, if they take the best choice of action when in the same situation, it would tend to be the same action. There is an ideal response to things that happen to you. And the ideal I would call the good, and the not so ideal I guess I could call the bad. And so I think that it may be objective in that way, that there, some action has got to be the best of all actions one can take in any given situation.
In a specific situation, yes, you could say, in this situation, doing action A is, the correct, the good thing to do. But you can't just then apply that and say, okay, well, in this situation, not stealing things is the good thing to do.
Right.
Therefore, in every circumstance you can possibly imagine, stealing is the wrong thing to do.
Right. Yeah, different
you
variables.
Can't apply that.
You can look at it like equations. Change the variable, and you might have a different answer. But
Exactly.
I think right and wrong is to be determined, not to be just believed or accepted from a dogma on faith. Yeah. It's to be determined.
Yeah. And
well, how do you guys feel about they have all these shows where they go ghost in the here. How do you think of poltergeist? What do you think of things like that? Is there something beyond that's coming out at us? Do you believe in the poltergeist type situations?
I don't believe that at all. I mean, I wish I knew someone with a haunted house. I'd be happy to walk right in there and say, "Ooh, come on, ghosts."
So you don't believe in ghosts or spirits? Y'all don't believe in any of that?
No, not at all. And I remember when I was a child, I did. And I used to kind of trick myself into believing all kinds of things.
Okay,
exactly.
Yeah, I would give myself chills and maybe exaggerate things a bit to spook my friends. And I suspect that maybe adults do that too. Some people maybe don't.
Our imagination is really powerful. And
our imaginations, of course they are. Absolutely. Our brain is the most powerful thing that there is. But I also believe that there's something, I'm not sure, I'm not really on the, I know that Jesus was probably a man, but I'm not sure about how, I don't know if he was like all this, if he was God's son. And I really, I'm confused. None of us were there. None of us were there.
Yeah. So you might as well remain agnostic about Jesus.
Okay.
Just to not believe, and you don't have to disbelieve either.
Because again, with anything, there's always, is there enough evidence to support this idea? Now,
exactly? I want evidence. That's what I want for everything, and I'm very open.
Exactly. Was Jesus a man? Well, I've seen some things that say yes, some things that no. I haven't really read into it all that much, so I kind of don't take a stand on that. But as far as saying, was he the son of an all-powerful God who decided to, impregnate some woman?
Very confusing to me.
That's getting into, those are some pretty extraordinary claims there.
Exactly.
And to be able to back that up, you better have a lot of evidence to go along with it.
Exactly.
And I don't see any of it.
Well, we weren't there.
So,
we don't know.
Well, no, but I mean, we have documentation. We have, and also there are just some logical problems. You can't have a square circle. It's a contradiction. It cannot exist. And so applying that to God, if God is, most definitions, when people say, do you believe in a God or don't you believe in a God, they usually mean that it's some kind of force or entity who is conscious out there in the universe.
And you're like, no, you guys are no way.
Typically, yes. But again, it depends on the definition. Most people would say that this God knows absolutely everything. He is good in every circumstance, and he is all-powerful. He can do anything that he wants. That God does not exist. End of story, no questions asked. Because, again, it goes back to the problem of evil. How can bad things in the world possibly happen if God knows about it, can do something about it, and wants good things to happen? He would be able to change things. He would be able to come up with better situations.
Yeah, but then there's the theory of free will and,
Well, the problem with that one is whose free will? You can say that, he's not going to stop the free will of, the murderer by, stopping him from killing someone. But what about the victim's free will of saying that they don't want to get killed today? And,
that's the confusing part.
And where does free will come into it when you have an earthquake? From stopping people from doing things, that's one thing. From an earthquake or a tornado,
Mother Nature,
that's something different. That doesn't have a consciousness.
There's also subtle ways to prevent tragedies without preventing free will. I mean, even when it's the evil of man, causing it. Like to
admit
cause
there's
a gun
evil people out
if
there,
someone's
right?
going to shoot another person, to have the gun jam, more than it does, that might be one
But you
way.
do admit
Anyway.
that there are evil people out amongst us.
There are people who are doing bad things. I'm just
Do you have
kind
no
of.
problem putting evil on
Well, I don't want to label someone like a bad
I'm
seed.
tiptoeing around that because yeah, I mean, just labeling someone as being, evil.
Right, as if they were born that
doesn't
way.
work. Exactly.
Or, I mean, the way I look at it is not so much as good and evil. I look at it as rational and irrational. There are people who are irrational. There are people who are rational. I think that everybody, almost everybody, is capable of being rational. It's just that nobody's really trying. We don't have much influence to think in terms of rational or irrational. We think
takes
of
some work.
good or bad, and then we're taught that you have to have just the right dogma to determine good for bad. And, that's not good.
And I went to college, I got a degree in economics, and so I kind of look at the world in that way, in that, everybody is selfish to the extent that I want what's best for me. And while, on the immediately that kind of sounds like, Scrooge type thing, well, what's good for me and, screw everybody else. But if you go around, screwing everybody else, it's going to come back.
So do you believe in karma then?
Not exactly, no. Again, going back to, let's say, a small village or something like that, if you're constantly making bad deals and treating everybody poorly, they're not going to have any reason to treat you well. They're going to just, stop dealing with you.
Right.
And if all of a sudden I have to find my own food, build my own hut, do my own hunting, and just, completely take care of myself, that sucks. That's a lot of work. If I could just be nice to some people and say, here, I'll do this for you if you do that for me, the world works out to be at a better place. We're social. We have to get along.
It's not as if, there's this thing called karma, the stuff that's in the air that knows when you've been naughty or nice.
Well,
The way it is
goes
that,
around. What do you think of
right,
that one,
and there's a reason for that, a perfectly naturalistic, materialistic reason for that, is that you're a human being, you're around other human beings, and they are witnessing what you do, they remember everything you do, they judge you. And,
based on your actions.
Right, and so that's why what goes around often comes around.
And a lot of times when you see things against that, as in, somebody's always driving recklessly or something like that, and then all of a sudden, they get their comeuppance, they had it coming, that's karma. A lot of times you only look at the things that go along with what you were seeing in the first place. You look at, how the bad things happen to them, but you ignore all the good stuff that happened to them. And so essentially it's just selective viewing.
But if you are a negative person and you're constantly, putting out negativity, that's what's going to come back to you.
Yeah, that's what you'd expect.
Yeah.
That's what makes it negative almost by definition.
Exactly, because if somebody's always negative to me, I'm going to, end up most likely being negative back to them because they just annoy me.
Right.
So. And
so you agree there's a negative and a positive. And then, and then it gets down to good and evil, and you guys don't believe in that, but sometimes
Well, no, I'm not saying I don't believe in that. I'm just saying that I choose to, I think that what's good is rational, what's evil is irrational. Yeah. I'm not saying it's instead of good or evil, I'm just saying that that's probably what explains it.
It's better definition of good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the guys who, the serial killers, to me, that's just, and the only word I can come up with is pure evil, and that's all they had in them. They didn't see any good, and they commit these heinous crimes, and that type of person, I tend to, put a label of evil on.
Yeah. And we're trying to figure out why those things happen. I mean, is it faulty wiring in the brain? Is it chemical problems?
Why?
Do they just have different decision-making processes than we do?
Or is there someone that had such a horrible, lousy premise in their understanding of the way things are and people and what they deserve that it caused him to do this? We want to know. We want to understand that. But at least that serial killers aren't that common. I mean, look at all the billions of people who aren't killing other people.
Yeah.
Exactly, but you've got your famous ones, and you wonder about their mind and where their mind is going and has been.
And that's what we're trying to figure out, to see what goes on with that.
And that's part of the process of fixing it, figuring it out.
We have limits in our knowledge.
The brain is just incredible. I mean, we don't have a clue. I mean, what we could do if we could tap into certain areas, and I almost like the movie Phenomenon, where he could move the pencil and so forth. I think there's a lot we could do with our brain that we just don't.
I don't think we could do that, though.
No.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. How would that possibly work?
It's all relative. It's energy.
And again, you can apply science to this.
Science, exactly.
Yeah, you can have, we could, yes, there are a lot of things that we don't understand in the world, granted. Let's say that, psychic powers, telekinesis, something like that is just something that we haven't discovered yet. We haven't figured out how it really works, so we can't
you do believe that
teach
some people are psychic? Do you believe that?
No, you can't apply science to it because apparently nobody's doing
nobody's doing it.
It's never observed.
And
hold on, what is the science to psychic people?
Well, for telekinesis, for instance, that's being able to move something with your mind. It takes energy.
Exactly.
In physics, we kind of have energy pretty well mapped out in terms of, microwaves, radio waves, sound waves, all this kind of stuff. We have it pretty well mapped out. We can't, come up with any way that this would possibly work. We have never actually seen it work. It's never been tested.
Right. It's
never been successfully done in some kind of laboratory scenario where we can figure out how this stuff works. It's still just, stories and, secondhand accounts and that type of thing, which aren't scientific.
It's not something to be believed in, and hence it doesn't have to be explained. I mean, it's sometimes kind of fun to think about, how would that work if it happened?
Exactly.
But it hasn't even happened. There's an atheist magician by the name of James Randi who's offering $1,100,000 to someone who can demonstrate to him something of what's considered the supernatural. Nobody's been able to do it. When anyone who's tried, he's able to. The deal is that he's able to reproduce it using science. There's usually some kind of trickery involved, and
wow.
so this stuff just doesn't happen.
And that offer by him has actually been out there for years and years and years.
If there were psychics, I would think they'd do that. And often, some psychics will say, oh, well, my powers won't work if it's for greed or if it's for money. But James Randi has made it clear that you can give it to a donation of your choice. You can donate that to charity. So why aren't they doing it now? That makes them look really bad.
Okay, but you do agree there are some legitimacy to psychic phenomenons. I mean, like I've had dreams. I've had dreams that have come true. Just minor one. Nothing like jet.
And
Jet
how many
747 is going to crash at 5 p.m.
And how many dreams have you had that didn't come true?
Oh, a lot.
Statistics.
But I've had several that have come true, but that are just so
and chance.
Stupid. Yeah, they're just really but they've come true.
It would be really strange if not a single one of your dreams ever came out to be sort of partially true. That would be kind of strange.
People have many, usually we don't remember our dreams, but almost everybody dreams every night. And of course, some things are going to happen to come true. You tend to dream about things that are happening in your life anyway.
Well, I dreamt, I left Austin, and I dreamt about a friend that he got a motorcycle and he had a wreck. And so I called another friend and said, man, I really have this weird dream. And he's like, oh, he actually he didn't have a motorcycle when I left town. And then he goes, oh, well, what color is it? He was challenging me. And I went, well, in my dream it was blue. And he goes, this is weird.
Yeah.
This is weird. And the guy ended up having a wreck. And it was all, so what do you say about things like that? What is that?
Everybody I've ever met who has a motorcycle tells me stories of wrecking. Every person I've ever known. So it is going to happen.
Say,
a lot of
these
these
things. If you have a
things.
motorcycle, you're going to have a wreck. But when I left town, this guy, I didn't even know he was going to get a motorcycle, and I pictured the whole scene.
Yeah.
I pictured the whole scene. So how do you explain that?
But I'm just saying some of the variables really aren't that remarkable. And then you might have one like, happening to dream of the color.
Yeah. But again, they have a certain number of colors typically, red, black, blue.
Yeah,
right.
What else? Pink.
You're not going to have a
wide variety. They could have, but when I left town, the guy wasn't even on a motorcycle. He was driving a truck. And when I called, I went, oh, yeah, he bought a motorcycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay. But also, I mean, keep in mind, there's over 6 billion people on the planet, each person dreaming multiple dreams. And you're going to have stuff like that happen.
You're going to have a couple hits.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've never had a dream that accurate. Have you?
No. No, I actually don't remember.
So for every
too many of
person
my
who has a
dreams,
dream like that, then there's lots of people who have it. And you happen to be someone who had that, and you're here telling us about it. Yeah. But how many people watching the show right now?
But did you find that interesting? I would love to have some more callers come in and say, hey, have you ever had like a really weird dream that came true? I would love to have some callers. So I'm just like out there right now saying, come on, callers, call in and say what dreams you've had that have actually been accurate and not just, where you can say, oh, well, that was, it could have happened. You know what I'm saying? You're saying, well, that's no big deal. It could happen.
Yeah. Well, we are going to go ahead and let you go. We got a couple of callers lined up on the show.
Well, good. I hope you get some good callers. And you know what, guys? It was so much fun talking to you. I really appreciate you keeping me on this long. And you're very interesting. Keep up the work.
Call back anytime. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Actually, I do have a dream to share. This is actually very interesting. It demonstrates another way dreams can come true. This year, I had a dream about a kitten that was that needed help or something. And then as I was waking up very slowly, and I heard a kitten meowing outside. Yeah. And at first I thought, oh, that's weird. A lot of people would say it's some psychic thing. And how did I know there would be a cat outside? And then I realized, wait a minute, that cat may have been meowing early enough before I woke up and put that in my head. Your mind
integrates this stuff, yeah.
Right. And if I wasn't a rationalist, if I liked mystical thinking, I would have just decided not to figure it out and say, yep, it was psychic.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, no, actually, as I was waking up, the cat wasn't meowing. I'm misremembering. My wife was waking up, and she said she had a dream about a kitten, too. And this is before we heard the meowing while awake. So then that was very strange. Okay. And then we heard some meowing outside. And I thought, oh, we must have heard the cat last night.
Exactly.
But if that cat didn't meow again, I might have not really figured it out. I thought, oh, weird. Is there some kind of telepathy between me and my wife? Because...
So, like I say, the mind works in strange ways, and definitely in between that sleep and awake time when you're just waking up, there's some really funky stuff that goes on.